This fire giant caught my eye a while back, and she then sat on the shelf for a decent amount of time before I took her down on a whim and started to paint her. I originally had no clear concept or idea as to where I wanted to go, and so I looked at pics online to try and get a better idea. I am huge on go your own way, but sometimes things just don't come together, and looking at other people's stuff can help to fire the imagination. She is part of Reaper Miniatures Bones lines, and until recently I was a bit meh on the Bones line itself. This was largely me being what is technically called a total twat. I was used to metal minis and had adapted an elitist ideal. Part of the problem was that many of the pics on Reaper's site is in the base white, and in the white the details look soft, even though they are not necessarily so. We have a review of our feelings on the Bones line up now, and the Crit Fail team feel very positive now towards the Bones line, mostly from actually painting some. This is still a 28mm figure, but she stands around maybe 50 to 70mm, as she is a giant. I found her to be an interesting design. A mix of skin, metal, hide, and the scaled cloak. It had a lot of opportunity, and I did my best to mix it up without going too far. I wanted a multicoloured cloak, and if viewed from the rear the cloak is a focal point. I decided that the cloak was from a red dragon, as fire giants can tolerate heat better. The armour I didn't want to be shiny. She isn't a paladin or knight, and I decided to go with a darker skin tone. And this was my first real attempt at this. One thing, as great as she is, there is a couple of flaws. Her spear can be very bent, requiring fixing. The other is that she has some mould lines, including one terrible one that goes over her hair. Careful work is needed to remove them, and I hope in future that they can find ways to not put the mould lines in so prominent a place. She sells for around $6.95 and is great value. And I've been looking at her now for several days after I finished her, and the more I looked, the more I wanted to use her in an RPG. So I came up with the idea that she was Fire Giant Nobility. Looking at Reaper's side, I believe she's the Fire Giant Queen. That she was infertile, and her husband thought her cursed and conniving with demons. She was cast out into the place that was meant to hurt her the most, an icy tundra. A fire giant left to freeze, and she was near death when she was found by a barbarian who had left his tribe in search of adventure and a mage. The barbarian had mixed with different races on his travels and was not as narrow of vision as some of his other tribe members. He disliked and distrusted magic, but he could not ignore the power of a fireball when desperation called for it. With a great amount of difficulty and taking every ounce of his strength, he dragged her to a cave where the mage was able to start a fire warm enough to keep her alive. It took time for her to adapt to those who saved her. She had never been outside her culture before, and all those of lesser scale her people had terrorized or hunted. She had no fear of being raped, as well as size difference alone would have made any attempt impossible, but the idea that they had saved her out of compassion was an extremely difficult one for her to grasp. But as time went on, she learned to trust her companions and even began to smile again over time, enjoying the frustration of the barbarian whenever he lost at arm wrestling. They travel, and sometimes the bigotry is pretty high as people have trouble with her race. What she is searching for now is a home, but rumours of her being alive have reached her husband, and he may be hoping to finish what he started. So there you go, bit of history, bit of an idea. Going to weave her into one of my RPGs somehow. That's coming. And I think she is worth picking up, and this mini can be cool for your game or for your shelf. Please tell me that was good.